Yeah, so Gary Bobb. I'd say I would describe my career as a 30-year plus global services executive. And what that kind of means is managing big service teams and industrial services like GE Healthcare, which is medical equipment, and Carrier, which was HVAC and refrigeration, etc. Yeah, it kind of goes back to that right person, right time, right part. So the biggest challenge is always going to be, can I get there on time? And even before the customer actually needs it. So if you're thinking about service events, they're not as predictable, they're kind of predictable. We can look at past history and say, I used 100 of these widgets on this type of repair last year. I'm growing 5%, so I need 105 next year. I wish it was that simple. So I think, from a challenge perspective, it's still how do I get that fulfillment perfect? And when you think about what's going on in the world today, there's always going to be a distraction, whether it was COVID or the supply chain interruption. Now we have tariffs and taxes and other costs. So, pinning it down to one challenge is going to be pretty impossible. But I would say service executives will constantly have the challenge of, do I have the right part on the shelf? And does my technician have the right part at the time of need for the customer? I call it the moment of truth with the customer because the system's down. It could be an MRI, it could be a CT, it could be a giant chiller. And these are really important pieces of equipment for that hospital or for that manufacturing facility. And if you can't answer the question of, yeah, I can get your system up and running in the next hour, 2 hours, I can keep your uptime really high, you're going to be in trouble as a service organization. Yeah, I think we can get close. I'm kind of in the 75 to 80% camp of autonomy or autonomous planning. And I say that because I think when I think, especially in the spare parts world, uh, some of it's very predictable, and I would say even half of it we kind of know what's going to happen, and that system can predict that based on historical usage and new inputs of how much install base is growing and mean time between failure and blah blah blah. You can spit out a pretty reliable number. The things the system will never know is there a new product coming? Are we going to upgrade install base? Are there customers that want to extend the life of their products? Are there customers that want to move to the new technology quicker? There's a lot of timing on the install base management on the system. And then there's the end of life discussion we had earlier. Just, can I still make this part in the future? Can I get it, or is it going to look different? Do I do 3D printing on it? Do I have to come up with a new part that's engineering's got to figure out if it's compatible or not? And I got to put that in the system and make sure that it replaces all the right places. So I still feel like there's going to be a need for someone to oversee the changes of the life cycle of the product for services. We're introducing a new product. We decided to do big upgrades in the install base. We're switching suppliers and vendors. I think those scenarios are going to require human manipulation or validation. Now, I'm coming from a service mindset, global service mindset inside an OEM company. So that's the context. Like, I'm at GE Healthcare, where we make medical equipment and we're servicing that medical equipment. One is I would go back into the OEM finished goods supply chain and be more integrated and partnered with those guys more. It tends to be, hey, we're making finished goods, you service guys, go figure it out. But I still need stuff from them in their supply chain. They want to make finished goods, they don't want to make parts. And there was always adversarial relationship. And I feel like we should have spent more time with the supply chain and working as partners to help them understand the need for the parts to take care of customers and work through that process better versus being such an adversarial relationship. The second one, I'd say lean into technology sooner. I think we spent too much time on Excel spreadsheets and, well, Gary's been around 20 years. He knows what parts we need out there. Just trust him. And I think leaning into technology sooner, because the third part that's really important is you got to have a great team. And I've learned having really good planners, really good forecasters, really smart people thinking about the network for service parts is important. And I found with the ketteQ example that when we put in really good technology and a good platform, it made the people better. Yeah, I think there's some reality there that we have to kind of face into. As an advisory member for ketteQ, when you do the bake-offs and the feature function checkbox, who's can do what, sometimes those look very similar. And so we got to make a point to be sure that we can really articulate what is different about our solution set, feature function, capability, whatever that is. And there are some, as we talked about. But I think the bigger piece for me that I saw as a customer was the investment from ketteQ to help me solve my problem. They were invested in the solution, invested in my targets, my goals. What am I trying to solve for? So I think bringing that, it sounds a little consultancy solution set, but the reality is people are going to argue about features and functions and tools and products all day long, and sometimes it's going to be a me too and hard to distinguish a difference there. I think we do have a difference, but you can't just rely on that. I think the real advantage and opportunity we have is I'm going to solve your problems for you, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. I'm on your team. What are your goals? Those are my goals. What are your targets? Those are my targets. And I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I'm going to invest people and resources and time to solve that fill rate problem you have, that capital problem you have, that supply chain reliability problem you have. And I think the more that we can sign up for that and say we're gonna solve your problem, I think will be a bigger differentiator. I think there's two things. One being that other solution for the market. Being there's an alternative now, and there's a better option out there. So just the fact that ketteQ can position itself as a better solution and a better option, I think is really exciting. Then the energy around the team, the skill sets, the expertise that are coming in to help build this out in the future is very exciting. And then, of course, probably the biggest one is the whole product itself, how we're leaning into the new technology and architecture and how we're going to leverage the latest thinking in AI and how the tool can actually start setting the parameters and learn from that and build those parameters, because I think it's almost impossible for us to think of every use case and every scenario. And this is where I believe, I'm not smart enough to know, but I believe this is where AI can really help. It can help you think, it can think of the scenarios for you and help come up with those parameters of planning and forecasting. And I think that's going to be a game changer. You still got to have the great team and the people around that, as we talked about. But if you can get the technology to eliminate all the what ifs and give you that, and here's the ideas and scenarios and options for you to consider and validate and adopt, I think that's going to be a very exciting world for us.